Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark. Lately, I've gotten into this weird rabbit hole of study hacks on Pinterest, and it's not great. It's hard to set some sort of objective quality standard with advice because different things work differently for different people. But there is some level of scientific consensus on how learning and memory work, and there is a baseline standard of content quality that is needed to correctly communicate information. I know that my tips in my channel are not perfect, but this is like another level. It gives me very deep fried Facebook memes mixed with graphics and life advice from 14-year-olds stolen off of Tumblr. So I thought today we could kind of just chill here on my bunk bed, take a look at some of these strange Pinterest posts, and let's work on separating the wheat from the chaff, pointing out what is some valuable study advice you can take away from this, and we can critique some not so helpful study advice. So let's get started. Okay, so one of the first posts that I just came across when I searched for school advice is this one called School Life Hacks. Oh boy, okay, so my problem with most of these tips is that it's just so obvious. Do your homework. Get a planner. Organize everything. I really freaking hope you already knew these things. I don't know how you passed 5th grade if you didn't know that being organized is generally a good thing. The problem with this advice is that it states the obvious, what you need to do, without actually telling you how to do it, which is the part that people actually struggle with. Most of us are not looking for someone to just command us to say, do your homework and get organized. We're looking for advice on how to get it done in the best way, or maybe some motivation on why we should do these things. Just throwing out this sort of simplistic, just do it remark ain't doing it for anybody, really. I'm also really confused by number 8. It says, if you don't have time for studying everything, study the first 20% and the last 20% of the thing. Maybe I'm just dense, but what the heck does this even mean? Very, very few academic subjects are this very linear set where you can map out the exact first 20% and last 20%. Maybe if you were just studying a super narrow segment of history, that might work, but I can't see this working out for pretty much any other subject. For example, let's say I have my AP Calc test coming up and I wanted to apply this method to the subject of calculus. So maybe that first 20% of the journey is understanding what is an integer, how to do basic arithmetic. And then the last 20% is I don't know, the most cutting edge research and topology or something. And okay, we'll cut this person a bit of slack. Maybe by thing they meant the chapter. So they're telling you to study the first 20% of the chapter and the last 20% of the chapter. But even then, if you only have time to study 40% of the material, I really wouldn't recommend going about it in this way. Instead, I would recommend you take a little bit of your limited time to identify the 40% of the material you struggle the most with, and then focus your energy on that particular 40%. Since that part you're struggling with, the area that is most outside of your comfort zone, is where you have the most room for learning and growth, which is also probably where you've been losing points in the past. As a quick interjection, today's video is sponsored by Surfshark, which is a VPN app and extension. One thing that Surfshark is super useful for is that the VPN can add this extra layer of security online, which helps to protect your passwords and other device content. For studying, this can be super helpful to stay safe while you're on public Wi-Fi, such as at a cafe that you're studying at when COVID is over, or on your school Wi-Fi. It also helps protect you if you are torrenting, because sometimes school textbooks are just a little bit too expensive. Surfshark also allows you to change the location of your device, or basically use the VPN so that your device looks like it's in a different country or region, and therefore allows you to access internet features as if you were in that country or region. This way, on YouTube, Netflix, just the internet in general, you can access the content that isn't available in your country. For example, Canada's Netflix catalog is far superior to American Netflix. They have the entire Harry Potter series on there, so sometimes when I feel like having a quick Harry Potter marathon, I'll just use Surfshark, pretend I'm in Vancouver. Additionally, Surfshark is the only VPN that allows you to use on an unlimited number of devices, so I have it installed for easy movie viewing on my phone, my iPad, and my laptop. If you're interested, use the code STUDYQUIL for 84% off and 4 extra months free. Surfshark has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk if you want to try it out. So make sure you check out the link in the description. Thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring this video, and now let us get into more Pinterest weirdness. Okay, another one I found says, how to survive school/hacks. One thing I take issue with is the caption that is overlaid on top of an image of a rose gold iPhone 7, which is, if you are having trouble in math, go to wolframalpha.com. First of all, I think they meant wolframalpha.com, and in any case, I wouldn't recommend going to Wolfram Alpha either. Wolfram Alpha will solve most of these simple computational type problems, but you have to pay in order to see a step-by-step solution, which kind of defeats the purpose of going out to look for assistance in the first place. Like, sure, maybe you can BS your way out of some homework by just looking up the answers on one of these internet generator type things, but oh boy, your lack of understanding is really going to show through as soon as you have to take any sort of like test or quiz. And I've never been in a math class where the teacher will just accept an answer on the page without any sort of work. So really, you just should learn how to do the problem. If you're struggling with figuring out how to do it, you could ask your teacher or a tutor or a study group or your friends or your parents. Maybe even check Slader if you have to, like if it's a textbook exercise, because at least most of the time the Slader solutions will include all of the steps so you can follow along and figure out what's happening. So yeah, overall would not recommend this tip. And the other one that I wanted to take a closer look at is the one that says chewing gum will help you read faster. So I was very, very skeptical of this, not gonna lie, because it just looks like one of those dumb life hacks where you trick yourself into believing that doing some random action will make you perform better academically, but apparently it actually does seem to have a scientific backing behind it. I googled it, and this seems to be very helpful if you have the problem of reading with your mouth, which is like when you say the words out loud really quietly as you read instead of just reading in your head. That habit of reading with your mouth limits your reading speed because you are limited to just the pace at which you can talk, which is significantly slower than the speed you could probably read at if, you were just looking at the words. Having gum in your mouth to chew just stops you from doing the This hack probably wouldn't be so helpful if you've already transitioned into the habit of reading in your brain only, but if you haven't, it could be a good stepping stone for you. All right, this next one is called study tips, and I feel like I've definitely seen this background photo before. Like, this was definitely stolen off of Study Blur without any sort of credit. Okay, the first thing I'm noticing is that this person seems to contradict themselves. They say, look for a good playlist and listen with the volume low. And then they say, if music is too much of a distraction, then turn it off. You don't need any distractions. So that's a little bit confusing, but we'll let it slide. Maybe the point they're trying to make is just like everyone can tolerate a different noise level while they're studying, but generally having music may be a bit distracting. Moving on, there are a couple things in this that are just like straight up not good tips. For example, this one says you should sleep before you study. And I agree depending on what they mean grammatically by this. Like, if they're saying you should get approximately 8 hours of sleep each night, that way you will be generally awake and energetic when you're studying and doing schoolwork. Like, yes, I agree, that's a good piece of advice that most people generally want to follow. But if they mean, oh, are you going to study at 4 p.m. today? Well, then make sure you take a quick nap before then. Not so much of a great tip. Of course, it varies from person to person. Like, maybe you can take a nap in the afternoon, just feel real energized and get straight to work. But for me personally, and for a lot of people I know, taking a nap kind of like disrupts your entire schedule and you wake up feeling kind of groggy. If your body is telling you you're absolutely exhausted, your tank is empty, and you just have to sleep now before you try to force yourself to be productive, like, just do it. Don't burn yourself out too hard. But if you are planning to study anytime soon, get energy by like drinking coffee or doing a little bit of exercise, not taking a nap, and then risking waking up 3 hours later completely disoriented and tired. Another one I disagree with is if you're studying for a quiz or test, make sure you study in the morning before your quiz or test. That sounds like a worse version of an all-nighter, honestly. Like, could you get any more last minute? Especially if your test is in the morning? The thing about studying and test taking is that studying is like doing a workout for your brain muscle, and then taking a test is like going for your race or match. So an athlete probably wouldn't do an intense workout the morning of their race. Since you are an elite brain athlete, you probably should not be doing any sort of intense brain workout before you go out and take your test. If you do too much right before your test, it'll start to exhaust your energy stores and you won't be able to focus as well and recall information as well. Just overall, not a great time. I think I would just add some qualifiers to this tip to like develop it a bit more. Do not do some sort of intense study session the morning before your quiz or test, but the morning before your quiz or test, you might consider just doing a teeny tiny bit of light work as a sort of warm-up for your brain. See, otherwise, a lot of these tips are, rather underdeveloped 3-word bullet points, but they're good points that deserve further consideration. However, since I strongly suspect plagiarism in the background image of this photo, unfortunately that results in an automatic 0 and a report to the Academic Dishonesty Office. So, sorry, 0 out of 5. I've been on StudyGrim and StudyBlur for so long that I am a human version of Turnitin.com. Okay, let's do one more post because I have been sitting here talking to myself in my dorm room for way too long. So this last post is Mom Shortcut number 114. Study hack. Need to memorize something? Read it 10 times. Say it out loud 10 times. Write it down twice. Now it'll stick in your head. Okay, so I don't fully disagree with this method, but I also don't really like it that much, and I personally wouldn't do it or recommend you do it. Let's break this down step by step. So for the first 2 steps, read it 10 times and say it out loud 10 times. That kind of reminds me of how I wasted all my time in elementary school when I was trying to memorize a piano piece. Instead of putting like active brain power into remembering the chord progressions or the melody, I just kind of played it over and over again, hoping that my muscle memory would kind of just like figure it out. What such a waste of time, not a great study method. The main problem with these just look over it and say it out loud a crap ton of times methods is that you're not practicing a skill that you actually need to know. Like, you don't have to be super great at just looking at information and being like, ah yes, I think I know that. Or like reading it out loud from a page. No, your test is going to be like, here's a completely blank sheet of paper. Please recall this information from scratch. To train yourself to accomplish the things you'll need to do for a test, you're going to have to do different work, but more efficient and therefore less work than just reading it, saying it out loud, and writing it down over and over. For example, maybe instead of doing the first 2 steps, just strike them out, ignore them completely, and write it down twice. The key thing in this writing it down twice is that you do not look at your notes when you're doing this writing it down. Just try to recall it completely from your memory. Then after you're done-ish, like you basically think you're done, you can't think of anything else to add, compare it to what you've written down from your notes and see if there's anything you're missing or anything you just got completely wrong. And instead of just doing this twice in one sitting, maybe do it like 4 times, spread out during the 4 weeks before your exam. And there we go, now you've got active recall and spaced repetition, 2 of the good study methods that are backed by psychology. Also, just as like a mild technical complaint, like, are you really gonna ask me to read a biology diagram out loud 10 times? Or write down my entire 6-page Chopin prelude that I'm learning for piano class twice? Nah, that's not happening. This does not work for anything besides just like memorizing definitions and formulas. So that was some not great study tips from Pinterest, some points that I have made about what's good about these, what's not so great, what you might want to do instead. Let me know how you feel about this, if you'd like me to do more of these like chatty, me just rambling on about random things videos. I upload new videos about student life every week, and my Instagram, where I post photos of my notes and my life in general, is @studyquill. See you next time!